Mm. You know what, y'all? I was just having some thoughts about something. Um, you know what fascinates me? Like the clan. You know, the clan. Um, mm, you know, the Klan, Nazis, you know, that stuff fascinates me. And it fascinates me because, you know, I don't believe in the rhetoric, of course, but I do, um, I understand the fervor. You know what I mean? I understand it. And, and, it's like a sports thing. Like I've played team sports, played football. Um, I was a receiver. I moved around. I started off as a cornerback. Then I went to safety. Um, then they put me at running back, and I had the moves. I didn't have the speed. Um, uh, the guy who was the starting running back, Craig Rogers. He was like the fastest kid in the school, you know. But yeah, man, I understand the matter of fact. He was like the fastest kid in the state. Um, but yeah, like I understand the team sports thing. I get it. Now I don't like Nazi and Ku Klux Klan. I don't believe that rhetoric, of course, but the whole brotherhood thing of it, you know, that if not, that can be dangerous. You know, that's how people can get whipped up into doing murderous things, thinking they're good, or thinking they're right, or thinking they're doing the right thing. It's not that I'm against it. I'm for people challenging leadership, you know, not challenging those in power, but challenging your preconceived notion of how you think things should be. You know, I've kind of learned that the more I think about what I want, the more people get elbowed out. You know what I mean? What's going on? What's going on? And what's going on? I'm good. You know, but like I've always been fascinated with that stuff. I'm fascinated with like the Nazis and how a society can think they're doing good and they're clearly not, you know. Or like I said, the Klan, you know, how these people they thought they were doing good. That's why like I say this. Like I was on a tour, me and my wife and my kids, my four kids, we went to New Orleans, we went on a tour, like a plantation tour. It was really nice. And y'all know me. I got a big mouth, you know. And the poor girl, she's about 25. Well, she's about 24. She's college, probably fresh out of college. She might have been 23, 24, 23, something like that. She was a tour guide. So one of the ladies, she was like a slave owner. She was particularly nasty, and she said something about she died, and almost to the tone of she deserved to die. I was kind of like, I don't really think so. And it was like we were the only black family, only black people in there. There's a bunch of white people, and they turned around and looked at me. I said, I don't think so. And she was surprised. I mean, it's coming from a black dude with a black wife and some black kids. And she goes, well, basically everybody's looking at me like, why? I believe in, and I told them this. People are a product of the times. We don't do that now because humankind has learned from its mistakes. Not just America, humankind has learned from its mistakes, and it's learned from the past. We live in an age of information. We see everything now. These kids see everything. You know what I mean? I didn't go into that with her, but that's basically what I said. I said she was a product of her times. You know, put her in this time now and let her get used to, after she gets past the future. This is what I told her. After she gets past the future shock, she'll understand, oh, this is that we were wrong. And she'll be regretful, and she'd probably go the opposite way. She might be like one of them super, you know, America needs it. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people like that, a lot of people, when they repent, they lose their mind. They go out, no, don't curse around me. You know what I mean? That's just how it is, you know? And that's me being a Christian saying that. It's a common thing. You got to learn how to just kind of wear it on your sleeve, but let it show through your actions, not your words, and just, you pointing fingers at people. You got to be the best you can be. Are you being kind? Are you being generous? Or you know what I mean? Are you being considerate of others? It's not about pointing fingers. And I think that's what the left and the right have wrong. Both sides got it wrong. You know, if you're like a Christian, and I don't wear it on my sleeve, but like I like to consider myself a Christian, but I'm not left or right, man. The system is broken, bro. It's broken. You know, the system is broken. I agree with. There's a lot of things I agree with on the right, a whole lot of things, but there's a whole lot of things I agree with on the left. You know, I do believe in sacrifice. I do believe in hard work. I do believe in, you know, ain't no handouts. You gotta get your hustle on. You know, but I also do believe that ain't nothing wrong with helping somebody who's homeless on the streets. Like, I can't say get your hustle on when I can't say pull yourself up by your bootstraps when you ain't. There are people who don't have bootstraps. They don't even have boots. I was fortunate. I came from a really good family. You know, I came from a long line of, and I feel weird about it, but it's the truth. You know, pretty comfortable. That's a good word. Pretty comfortable black folks. I'm like fourth or fifth generation, you know, and I ain't a spring chicken, you know. The Edwards, he was a free black man. He owned his own business during slavery. That's why I say that, you know. And he worked on the Worthy plantation, and he bought a wife, and that's where I come from. He owned a construction company. He had a contract with James Worthy from the Worthy plantation, and he bought a wife. Her name was Polly Worthy. They had like 11 kids, but he was a free black man. And really, he was like, yo, man, you do such good work. I'll give you my best gal. You know, she's smart, she pretty, she ain't got no kids, whatever. Uh, and then he went and bought property in Florida. Back then, there was still Seminoles living out there. Like, they weren't on reservations or nothing. Because nobody really, Nobody really. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it ain't. Yeah, yeah. It ain't everybody's story. It's not. It's not everybody's story. I found a lot of this out when my dad died. Um,
So we've got here a little dish of nuts. There's little
he had a lot of stuff
bit of sugar and almond in the middle,
mapped out.
pan, dusted with
We
silver
didn't
to
know.
give it the nutty colour, and you get
You know.
pure sweet. And what's this? Well, why on earth did I lay out some bacon on the
That looked
table?
nasty.
It's supposed to be being spoilt, and bacon is a working man's food,
Ugh.
but not in this
But
case. It's been made to look
but
like
yeah.
bacon by dyeing some of the sugar with cochineal,
So I kind of,
the rest white to look like fat, but it's in fact
that's why I agree a lot with, and I'm not the only person. There's a lot of people,
sugar, and the middle one of
you know,
and silverly. So the one that looks silver is actually pure silver on top.
you know.
And that's
But yeah, man.
your diners.
But on the left,
Because you've taken
I've been homeless, man,
sugar, put man hours into it, and then put a precious
for like 10 years. Let me tell you something. I've experienced flying around the world and eating at some of the finest restaurants. You know, because my mom had a ridiculous job.
All of our lives, it's in most of our foods.
You know,
Bread.
and
Somewhere where your diet
I've gone off on my own
sugar-free.
and experienced life on my own
Helping neighbors
and
is
been
what makes our community special.
eating out of garbage cans,
That's why the Atlanta Community
homeless.
Food Bank unites 29 North
You know,
Georgia counties to fight hunger.
I just wanted to experience life,
Do what you can
you know,
to help a neighbor
see where life led me.
today
Because I knew where I am now, I would end up here.
and be given a table
You
full
know,
of sugar.
I don't suggest that to anybody else. I suggest you be wiser with your
Of
life,
course, you could have wine at a banquet. So
um,
if you just had sugar and alcohol for the first
because
time,
it makes for a lot of expensive wisdom. Put it that way.
try one of the sugar nuts.
It makes for a lot of expensive wisdom. I've learned a lot, you know, and in learning a lot, I've damaged myself. You know, I've damaged my psyche. You know, I've hardened my heart. You know, and it's a fight. You know, because I know deep down I'm still that Steve Urkel looking brace face, bumpy face, that kid, that little kid. And I like that kid. I like his heart. You know, I like his innocence. He was a good kid. You know, he still is a good kid. That's a side of me that I keep to myself. I like to protect. You know, I can talk about it, but like I'm secure enough. Ain't nobody gonna put hands on me. You think I'm a punk? I don't care. I'm too old for all that. You know, go live some life, and you'll get it. You know, live some life. You'll get it. You know, you ain't old enough. Oh wow. Oh, some bad teeth. I'm looking at these skulls. I thought so. Yeah, I thought so. The first thing I thought about, I'm looking at this, and the first thing I thought about is the absence of sugar or pre-sugar being introduced to English society and post-sugar being introduced. You can see a clear difference. The one skull had full teeth and everything. The other skull, like you see rot and stuff. Yeah. I've read a I've read a book on I've read a bunch of stuff, man, on just history, you know.
They would sometimes use alabaster
You
sticks
know, where sugar came
with digital
from,
stains.
like
They
the
might
whole,
use a
you know, there's a
powder
lot of history in
which was
sugar.
ground coral and pumice stone, which
Sugar
would
and
also
curry.
take away the enamel, of course.
It's a lot of history.
They also had kissing
And
comforts, which were
spices. There's a lot
perfumed
of history
sweet,
in
which took away
spices.
bad
Just
breath but did
what
nothing
you
for
eat.
decay.
You know, what you go to the
Tragically,
local
chewers had
supermarket
no
to get.
idea
It's a lot of
they were in
history
the
in that
grip of
stuff.
what would become
You know,
a
I think we take it for
centuries-long
granted.
addiction.
We sit on the
It's the
shoulders
sweet
of
taste that
generational
attracts us
of
all.
generations of
And
just human
part
history.
of the reason for that
And I think
is that it
nowadays
has an effect
it's
on the
so
chemicals in our
accessible
body.
that we don't really look into our
Sugar
surroundings.
helps us
You know,
absorb an amino acid called tryptophan, which is used
I'm
to
like a
remove
serious,
unwanted
serious, serious,
serotonin. And this is a
a
chemical that feeds
serious
the brain
history
to make us
buff.
feel happy and
You know,
content. It's one of the
why you call me
responsible
Elijah,
for pleasure
man?
chemical.
You
And so
know,
sugar is linked to that. And so it's thought that that's why people like sugar. And
wow.
that's why it is sometimes described as being addictive.
Sometimes it's
The work never
sometimes
stops.
described as being addictive.
Refine, secure,
Sugar is
share
addictive.
again.
There's
With the right
a
tools, your team can make the sharpest lefts and the fastest sprints look easy.
there's a there's a video
Addictive.
that talks about, and this is, and
In
it's
1992,
kind of picked
chewers
up
began
steam,
recording deaths
that
and mortality bills.
sugar is 10
Painkillers
times more
and all
addictive than
manner of
cocaine.
apparent causes. And
Not
only the
even
biggest
close.
killers make an appearance.
It's not.
Plague, fever, consumption,
Sugar's a drop in a bucket
and
compared to cocaine.
surprisingly, teeth
Trust
are
me,
there too.
it's a drop in a bucket.
Bad teeth. Can you really die from bad teeth?
Maybe it's because I just wasn't raised. I was raised where I didn't eat a lot of sugar.
Absolutely, tooth
I don't
disease
know.
can be a killer.
Teeth are deadly
Or
if you've
cocaine.
got that amount of decay
You
happening.
know,
And
I've been
often
sober
they also affect the
for
bone, so you can then form an abscess, and if that's
quite
then
a while.
travelling
Oof.
internally, you've got all of that
I
poison
ain't had no.
going
I
inside
had
of
it
you.
was
That can cause
forever.
you a lot of problems with your
You
health.
know,
Teeth are
heroin,
pretty deadly, actually.
weed, acid,
The acids bacteria
dust,
produce eat into the teeth, allowing infection
K,
to take root.
Molly,
Bacteria can then get into the bloodstream and attack other parts of the body.
liquid Molly.
Without antibiotics, there was very little the tudor dentist could do beyond pulling teeth.
Never shot up.
They would have had no
Nah.
understanding at all of the fact that sugar was
Mm-mm.
damaging the rest of the body. So high sugar levels could be
Everything I use,
co-associated
I
with
smoked or
various
snorted.
diseases like diabetes, and then the
You
bacteria
know,
from the decaying teeth
but I
would
never,
be damaging perhaps the heart valves and the kidneys,
never
so
shot
causing
anything up.
damage to all of the internal organs, and they would have no idea until it was too late.
You know, most of that stuff I smoked. That's back when I used to smoke cigarettes and all that
Sugar
stuff.
really can be a killer.
Yes, because if you're affected that badly,
You know, I don't do
it
nothing.
can have
I
that
just pretty
really big
much
effect on your health, and then cause your demise, cause you to die.
play drums.
Sugar was a slow burn killer, taking centuries for its true impact to be felt. Now it's
But the
considered
thing
by
about
some
that
to be
is,
responsible
I
for some
hate
of
that
the
I
largest health problems of our
experienced
time.
that in life.
The biggest danger, though, wasn't
But
what they ate, but the very construction
my
of
kids
the
are
herb
well
itself.
informed.
I'm making my way into
I
the middle
I
of
flat
the
out tell them,
house
like,
on the trail of the
don't
next
even
killer.
think about it. You know,
In fact, it's sitting
they
right
come
here,
from a long line of
immediately in
addicts.
sight.
Their mom, not my wife,
It's not the firebrand,
me,
but the
my
chimney.
dad. My dad introduced me to cocaine.
Before the
You
chimney
know,
was widely adopted,
you want to keep it,
early
you
tudor
want to keep
homes,
it
like the
gangster.
medieval houses
My
before
dad
them,
introduced me to
could
cocaine when I
easily
was
fill up
15.
with life-threatening
You
smoke.
really want to keep it funky.
The typical Tudor house
Just being real.
was a long house then. It was
You
a
know.
great hall house. There was a fire in the centre.
So I take fatherhood very
to keep the
seriously.
smoke away.
You know what I
This early
mean?
makeshift fence didn't work
I
well,
take it serious. First time I
allowing
tasted
noxious
heroin was
fumes
from
to
my
build
dad.
up in the home.
It was on the
The
cover of a
chimney
Santana
proved
album,
brilliant.
Abraxas.
The
Never forget it.
change from having an atmosphere in
It was in
constant
1978,
smoke and your
the
eyes
year
open,
MTV
to
came
having
out.
one where it's drawing and you've got clean air around you is enormous.
I was
And
13.
certainly anybody who could afford or two would have moved over as soon as he'd got to grips with the idea of this new technology being available.
Not only did the chimney make
Yep,
the
I
home
was
more
13.
comfortable, it had a dramatic
A lot of
impact
things
on
happened
its
in that
overall
year too.
layout.
Over the course of the Tudor period, with the introduction of, to begin with, quite experimental chimneys.
A lot of interesting things, a lot of good things happened in that year too.
Pushing the fire to the side of
Good
the
things
room,
that changed my life
it allows you to subdivide that space.
and allowed me to live a life that I never thought I would live in my life. Like the thing that happened in 78 was literally a blessing from God. You know,
Space
it was,
for new ideas of privacy and comfort to some extent.
it's why I'm alive. You know,
So the chimney ushered in
it's the
biggest
purpose.
change to the middling sort's home
You
for
know,
many centuries. For the first time, ordinary homes could have an upstairs level, separate rooms to sleep in, a kitchen,
you know,
and a room to dine in. And each one
they talk
had
about
its own
dating
chimney.
and
It revolutionized domestic life.
all that red pill stuff.
But these comforts came at a
That
price.
stuff is kind of funny to me.
Brought a host of hidden dangers. As the century went on,
I never had to, like,
whole towns.
I never wanted to date. I was just about music. If it happened, it happened. Like the first time I had sex, the chick raped me. That's just being real. Like that's being, is God is my witness. I hate to bring God in it, but that's what happened. If the roles were reversed and I did that to her, I'd be in jail for life. It was literally date rape. Bro, I used to have like friends of my mom like hitting on me, stuff like that. You know, crazy stuff. You know, like teachers. You know, I've had crazy stuff happen, man. You know, I've always kind of had my own thing going on. You know, but I've had crazy stuff happen. You know, so I've never felt the need to be like, oh well. Like I've always kind of been like, I don't want to. Well, my friends were like chasing chicks. I had my mind set on something else. I always had my mind set on something else. You know, while my friends was chasing chicks, and chicks were kind of like looking at me like, and I'm not. It was weird. It's still weird talking about it, but I'm really talking about it from a factual level. No emotion behind it because I don't. It makes me feel weird. You know. I just want my wife to be attracted to me. I don't. You know what I mean? Which I'm old and dusty looking now, so you know.
As well as using flammable materials
But
in construction,
yeah,
chimney
man.
builders had yet to work out the basic
So
principles
like
that made
I've
chimney
never
function.
I've never needed money to get women. I've never like I'm a decent dude. Like I have a decent conversation. Like I can talk to people. Like I can, hello, how you doing? I can introduce myself to people. Like I don't know if women were attracted to
The
that
draw was the
confidence.
suction effect,
Maybe they
which
were.
actually
You
draws
know,
smoke
but like
gases away from the fire
that
up the
comes from
chimney.
growing up in a house full of women and like,
But if the draw's not strong
but
enough, smoke leaks
I
into the
never
far
understood
control
that. I never
with deadly
understood the
consequences.
whole, you know, I don't know, man. I'm not blue pill. I'm not, you know.
Forensic
This may
fire
be
expert Bill
controversial,
Wilson
but men
can
should lead the
demonstrate
household.
the
I lead
impact
my
of
household,
unburnt fuel
you
on a
know.
Tudor chimney.
But there's an enormous responsibility to that. If you lead the household, I married a woman who is very intelligent. I'm trying to talk her into getting a doctorate, and she's thinking about it. Um, but I wanted an intelligent woman for a reason because I know I don't have all the answers. And sometimes, man, you got to defer to somebody who is smarter than you. in a lot of areas that you're not versed in, or not, that you just don't know. You marry a woman who's smart. That's You get with a woman who's smart. You get with an intelligent woman who's resourceful. You know what I mean? Who has class, but doesn't mind getting her hands dirty for the greater purpose of the relationship. You know, that's what you. That's it's just it's basic, bro. It's basic. You know, that's wise. There are a lot of women out there
So
like
that was
that.
an effective draw.
They just are. There are a lot of women out there like that. I'm gonna say this, y'all. Don't get fooled by social media. There are a lot of women out there like that. And let me tell you something. If you're looking for love in bars and clubs, and it really ain't no bars and clubs because everything's shut down. But I'm just saying, if you're looking for love that way, you're not gonna find it, man. You know, what you really need to do is work on yourself. Work on your character. Learn how to be faithful. Learn how to be trustworthy. Learn how to be honest with yourself and others. Learn how to be respectful of yourself and others. You know what I mean? Learn some positive morals and characters. I'm not going to say character, morals and character, because there are bad morals and there are bad character. As a matter of fact, if you hang around people with bad character, I don't care how good you think you are, your character is going to change because you are who you associate with. That's just facts. You know, work on yourself for the betterment of the other person, not your betterment. You know, and go into the relationship um, with a genuine interest in building a life together, building a legacy. You know, when my wife and I knew we were going to get married, the vision in my head, vision that popped up in my head was her sitting down, well, her and I, me sitting down, her standing up, our 4 kids behind us. We weren't even dating. We were barely friends. You know what I mean? And that's just real. We were barely friends. But I knew our first date, I knew we were going to be married. It was pretty much on some blind date set you up type stuff. You know, my homeboy, he's a lawyer now, but he's a producer. Um, you know, we used to talk music all the time. He wrote a lot of songs, you know. But he introduced me to my wife, the woman who would be my wife, you know. Um, and I was just like, okay. In my mind, I was like, okay, she's pretty. Okay. And I was like, how you doing? Blah, 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 blah. And I kept it pushing. You know what I mean? Like, the pleasantries, I kept it pushing. And I kept, because I was in conversation with this dude, the sound man. I was in conversation with a sound man. And that was it, man. Then later on, my boy Q was like, yo, man, why don't you take it to the New Year's dance? I was like, all right. And it was her and this other chick. And the other chick, no. She was cool, but she wasn't for me. You know, but in my mind, I'm like, okay, so the first one I see is the first one I'm gonna ask. And the first one I saw was the woman who would be my wife. So we went on a date, you know, to the Atlanta Botanical Gardens. And that night, we knew we were gonna be married. That night. We were just talking. I said, you know what? The place where I would want to be engaged, I would want to propose to a woman is Central Park. I didn't know that the place that she wanted to be asked to propose to is in Central Park. Now, we didn't even know each other. She's from New Orleans. I'm from Jersey, fresh, that's still smelling like New York, you know, because I spent like 10 years in New York before I came down to Georgia, you know. So it was just wild, man. It was wild, man. But prior to that, man, I had pretty much swore off dating because it wasn't like I was a hoe. I was. Um,
gun accident in Kent in 1518.
I just was good, man. You know,
In Wingham in Kent,
I was like, I've lived my life. I probably won't get married, and I'm cool with that. You know what I mean? But I was like, and this is what made me work on myself. The day I was introduced, the first time I was introduced to my wife, after she walked, I was talking to that dude. I finished the conversation. She had walked away. I talked to the dude. We finished the conversation, and I ain't think nothing about it. A friend of mine, he asked me two things. I had given up music because I felt like music was my idol. It was my God. He said, how come you're not involved in the church band? I said, because our church band, we got albums and stuff out, you know. I was like, well, you know, to be honest, man, mind you, I'm coming from rock and jazz. I'm like, man, I don't like gospel music, bro.
That all chimneys occupy
You know, in my mind, I was like, because I'm just be honest. I said, man, I don't like gospel music. I said, I like the message, but all that, nah, I ain't got time for all that. I ain't got time for all that. And he said, well, you know what? You don't gotta play gospel music. You know, like now, I love gospel music. Gospel music has really changed my life. But back then, I was coming from rock and jazz. I was smelling like jazz music. I was playing jazz music out in Manhattan, living in Brooklyn. There's a few spots in Brooklyn too. But yeah, I was just playing straight up jazz, man. Um, so I really wasn't trying to hear anything else. And I'm coming to the South, and the South is like on some. This is during the crunk movement, you know. Although I didn't know there was an underground kind of like jazz scene popping off, you know. Matter of fact, it was hot back then. The underground jazz scene, whew, it was the smokers. In Atlanta, they all left. They went either back up to New York or to Philly or California. They all left, you know. But but yeah, so I was just like, you know, I don't like gospel music, you know. And he was like, well, you don't gotta play gospel music.
Water
God gave you a
is a
talent.
very heavy
You
substance.
gotta play
And so
music.
if you've got to acquire it from
I was
any
like, wow,
distance in your
okay.
household, that's going to be
And he said, you
quite
know
a
what,
major
bro?
part of the effort that's put in during
You need to
the
prepare for marriage. And I was like, wow, that's kind of random. I said, yeah, man, you need to prepare for marriage. And he said, you really need to consider getting back into music. Later on that week, he showed up at my doorstep with a bass. He said, you're playing in church now. You're gonna be the bass player. Because I play a bunch of instruments. So I started, nobody even knew I played drums. I was the bassist. I was a bassist, and you know, I ended up being the bassist in Deeper Shade of Soul. The guy, that's the name of the church band, the gospel group. And I ended up playing bass for them, and then I ended up playing drums for them. So it was just kind of like, you know. But back then, I was playing bass for them. I was playing bass for another chick, man. Ah, I can't remember. This chick could sing. She was neo soul. I played bass for them. Played for uh, bass for a dude, Jay Evans, gospel dude. Um, so that bass took me a long way. Um, but yeah, he showed up at my doorstep with a brand new bass. Was like, you playing for church now? And then I ended up buying a SWR working man. I think it was a 12. It was a 12. Um, that was like SWRs are like incredible amps. Um, Fender bought them out, and now if you buy a Fender Rumble, it's an SWR. Like the Fender Rumbles are ridiculous amps. They're just like insane amps, you know. They're great for jazz, like incredible for jazz, but they're SWRs. Um, but you know, I'm just going off on tangents, y'all. Whatever. But yeah, man. So after that, he showed up at my house. I took my wife on you know, my then friend on a date, or she wasn't even a friend. I didn't even know her, you know. I didn't know her. She was just some chick that was introduced to me. That's how I saw it, you know. And I was like, oh, I'll take her out on a date, you know. And really, man, I picked her up. It was her, and like she was living in a house. It's a big old house, big blue house. It's her. She had like three other roommates. It was like 5 rooms or something. It was a big house. So I picked her up, and I remember a voice said, "Look at her," and I looked over at her and said, "That's your wife." I was like, "Hmm?" And throughout the night, the conversation was confirming that voice. You know, from that night, she knew on her side, and I knew on my side. We were supposed to be together. We never told each other. So what I did, I decided to write a diary. And from that day to our wedding night, I kept a diary. And I gave it to her on our wedding night. You know, didn't tell her about the diary or nothing. From that night, from after that date, I went to work, got off work, went to Walmart, bought a diary, and I would just like collect different things the entire time of our courtship, dating, engagement, you know, up to our wedding day. That's it. I've been keeping this for you. She was like, I've been keeping this for you. You know what I mean? So, uh, yeah. What? Flash spot.
As well as the cold and the shock, it's difficult to keep my balance. My clothes are dragging, getting caught up.
Yo, Tristan. Yeah. I don't know if he's still there. Yeah.
And then the difficulty was getting out. Is that immediately my clothes are getting very heavy. This is all wool and it's getting completely waterlogged.
He said, I can't tell how old you are. Yeah, a lot of people can't tell how old I am. Yeah. A lot of people can't tell how old I am. Okay, yeah. Yeah, a lot of people can't tell. You know. Oh, you think I am, man?
More moisture than any other fiber before becoming saturated. Oh my goodness, clothes have doubled in weight.
Yeah. I look young to everybody, bro. I'll be 60 next year.
I'm not just imagining it.
Yeah. I feel about 36.
Which means
Yeah.
my clothes are much heavier as I try to get out.
I feel about 36.
I didn't feel it when I was submerged.
You know.
As soon as I tried to stand up, it's
I experienced a lot, man. You know.
really not easy.
That's what I said. I'm blessed, man. Like I've been preserved. You know. You know. I've been preserved, man. You know.
Slippery banks.
But that was like a lot of it was like just growing up. My mom was very restrictive. We ate really healthy, you know. And even when I got on my own, there were times where I eat stuff that I had to eat because I was homeless, man. I would eat stuff that I had to eat. You ain't got no choice, you know. But just that foundation, and I was always athletic, you know. And even on my own, I was just on my own. I would just go through periods where I just wouldn't eat meat. And a lot of guys who don't eat meat, they replace it with a bunch of carbs. That's why they get fat. I'm telling you. There's a healthy way to go vegan, and then there's an unhealthy way to go vegan. That's why a lot of vegans get fat. They stop eating meat, start eating a bunch of carbs, and you eat dough, you're going to turn to a dough boy or a dough girl. That's just what it is. That's human metabolism. That's not racism. It's not sexism. It's not fat shaming. That's just biological facts. If you eat a lot of dough, you're gonna puff up like you some dough. You know what I mean? Now I'm not anti-carb. I'm like, but you gotta like Everything in moderation. You can't eat too many carbs. It's like you can't eat too much meat. You know what I mean? You can't eat too much of anything. You know what I mean? You have to have a balanced diet. And I think when you base your diet on your taste buds, you're never going to get a balanced diet. You're always going to get stuff that tastes good to you. And that's not the point of food. The point of food is to acquire a taste for different kinds of food. And once you do that, you really can appreciate food more because your palate has been expanded. You know what I mean? You can, and then you can start picking out, oh, I can taste this in there and I can taste that in there and I can taste it. Then it won't, then salt won't be considered a spice. Salt is a spice enhancer. Salt is meant to bring out the flavors in all the other spices. It's not meant to be used. I'm not going to use nothing but salt. Loop. That's not what salt's meant for. You know what I mean? But I wouldn't have known this. I really studied food. And I studied my relationship with food. And I prayed about it. You know, and I asked God to give me wisdom about it. And that's like, I just soaked in a bunch of stuff, you know, and I just learned a bunch of stuff. Or God would show me that this worked for my body, or that worked for my body, or, you know, what have you. But it's you know, you can't chase your taste buds. You know, you can't. You can't, you know, you're gonna have to deprive your taste buds of what doesn't taste good. Until what doesn't taste good starts tasting good. That's all it is. That's literally what it is. And that's and what makes you get over the fact that it doesn't taste good is the fact that you know in your mind, forget how you feel, forget how the taste makes you feel. In your mind, in your thinking, you're like, this is good for me. There's some things that you're not gonna like that is good for you. You know? Even like now, I live by that. Like, I would show. I'm gonna show it. I got a gym. You know what I mean? I got a little home gym. It's not much, you know. It's enough. I got a little squat rack. I got 2 benches. I got a bench rack. I got an incline rack. I got a lat pull down machine. I got a heavy bag. I got an elliptical machine. I got a chin up bar, like you can do eyes, all that stuff. I got a stationary bike. I got everything. I got a TV so you can watch TV while you're working out, the whole 9 yards. You know. But I just, you know, that's just what I want. And I got this stuff pre-pandemic. I just had it for years. You know. You know, when I turned 50, really I'd always been athletic. But because my wife and I were working from home, you just naturally get fat, and I started getting fat. Um, and then this was like in my 40s. So then I went through some things, and decided I'm just gonna get healthy. And just on a whim, just was like, you know, I got to get back to fighting. I got to get back to training. I just got to get back to. Really, in my mind, I'm like, I got to get back to fighting shape. I got to get back to combat shape. That's really, really what was in my mind. That was my focus. And I noticed when I'm training or exercising, I get better on drums. So I just went, bought a whole bunch of weights. I like bought out Walmart. I couldn't get them at Walmart no more. So I started going to Dick's Sports. You know, I was like, oh, this is where I need to be. And I just been going to Dick's Sports ever since. A couple things they didn't have at Dick's Sports, so I go to Sports Authority, or Academy Sports. There's a bunch of stuff in where I live. You know, to go, a bunch of places to go to. I live I live in a great area. But, yo, Tristan, you was saying the 5 spot, man. Yeah, you were saying the 5 spot, man. Oh, he said old soul in the modern mind. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I try to keep it like that, man. I try to keep it like that. You know, because I think what happens is, man, when you get older, you get stuck on, like I'm like, look, man, I understand Miles Davis. I understand Stanley Clark. I understand them dudes. I understand Chick Corea. I understand John Coltrane. I understand them dudes, man. That's why I think the way I do. I understand them dudes. I understand, like, I can't do the same thing twice, man. You know. So you like where most people they get older, they get set in their ways. I can't get set in my ways, man. I'll die. I'm sorry, man. I'll die. I can't get set in my ways, man. I gotta keep moving. You know what I mean? I got an internal clock, man. I gotta keep moving, man. You know what I mean? And the best source of energy is youth. The best answers is from people younger than you because they got the objective view of you. And they can say, "Oh, you doing it that way?" Well, I ain't got time to figure all that out. I'm gonna just boil it down to its simplest, most common denominator. You know, and then I'll look at you, you 16 years old, and be like, "Oh, okay, that's what you got. Well, that's what I'm gonna do." Because all you doing is regurgitating something that my generation did. So why not just take it back? You know what I mean? Like it's literally said, and you know what? I'm gonna take it back and give it to dudes younger than you. I'm gonna give it to your little brother and your little nephews and your cousins. I'm gonna give it back to the kids. You take it. You know what I mean? And then a lot of times, man, I'll play drums and young dudes be like, "Where you get that from?" I'll be like, "Oh, I got it from such and such and such." Huh? Yeah, I got it from, like, I'll name. Oh, I got it from Metro Boomin. That beat, yeah, it's a Metro Boomin beat. Like, or I got it from Hit Boy. Like, I just take rap beats. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the stuff I be playing, it be rap beats. It just be rap beats played on a set, on a drum set. And the thing about drums, it's linear. You know, but when people are making beats, they're doing the same thing, man. They tapping out on boards, on tapping out on pads. You know, when they making beats, they're doing this. It's the same thing. It's literally the same thing, man. You know what I mean? It's the same concept. Concept. You either playing with sticks in your hand or you playing with your fingers. That's that pause. Big pause. But you know, y'all know what I mean. But but yeah. So you know, it's simple. You know, but oh no, 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 no. The five spot. Yeah, man.
And all written by a supposed medical expert. At first glance, the books appear to contain no shortage of sound.
Radley Freaker. Nah, never heard of him. I probably saw him. Yeah, man. I used to go to the five spot like regularly with Kevin Scott. And then when it closed down, let me tell you something. I'm gonna tell you this. There's a few of us there, man. There's a few of us there. I don't know. You know about Snarky Puppy?
These medical books made their way into the Tudor home
Y'all, you know, if you know music, you know Snarky Puppy.
or death.
Snarky Puppy. You know, they're a legendary band. I met them when nobody knew them. Okay. What do you mean? Okay. Nah. But yeah, man.
But the
Yeah.
medical tomes
I
weren't
met
necessarily
them.
the wonderful cure
They came to the five spot when nobody knew them.
Some of the recipes found in
What
the
happened
books
is
seem very old.
I saw Kevin. Kevin was real cool with Lil John Roberts. Lil John Roberts at the time, he started off playing with Janet Jackson, and then he was playing with Earth, Wind and Fire, and then he was just doing a lot of studio work in local Atlanta, and then he started at this time he was playing for Jill Scott. So he was fresh off tour with playing from Jill Scott. He had a green mohawk. He had a green, like, regular, you know, it wasn't perm or nothing. He's a black dude. He had a green mohawk, you know. And it was like, you know, faded on the side, but he had a mohawk and it was green. And I'm like, "Yo, man, what's good, man?" He's like, "What's up, man?" I was like, "What you doing?" He was like, Nah, I'm just chilling, man. He said, you ever hear Snarky Puppy? I'm like, no. And like when there's new music and new bands, that's my thing. That's my thing. I was like, nah. He was like, yeah, I figured as much. He said, look,
Incorporating the blood
he said, you'll hear about him.
guts of an
And then
animal
Kevin
stood a high chance
walks up
of
to me.
being
He's like, Mark, what's up, man? I'm like, what's good, man? He was like, yo, man, watch this.
for a section
I'm
to
like,
finish.
okay. I'm like, what the heck is going on? So all of a sudden they come on the band. I just see guys loading in stuff. As we're talking, I'm watching guys loading in stuff. Like, the 5 spot, it's got like that it's got that high backstage. I haven't been I think they took it down
Problem with all the
because
tunes.
I've been there recently.
All based
It's not even called the 5 spot anymore. It's called something else. But they took that rise because it used to be a big old stage and a big old speaker right there, and a big old well, they had a smaller speaker there, and then they had one hanging from the ceiling. Um,
everybody was of the full
but I saw
human
dudes loading in on the
to be
stage,
kept in balance, to remain
and
healthy.
I never forget the
Disease
original drummer.
be
It wasn't Spud.
of the humans.
It was another
Nowadays, we
dude.
know there's no
He had a
scientific
he had a
basis for
green
it. But
Mapex,
if you've got a
and it
theory
used
that
to
is decidedly
glow
wrong,
because the 5 spot had like black lights and stuff. It used to glow. It was like a wild green, but it glowed like neon, like a neon sign. But it's a green Mapex. And he was a good drummer, but he wasn't no Spud. He wasn't no Spud. I remember Spud before he was with Snarky. He was with Snoop Dogg.
would have been perceived as being
And so apparently I'm putting the puzzles together because I remember seeing Spud.
because
He
really
would do sound checks
infectious disease
and he would play along to Dave Weckl songs, drumless Dave Weckl tracks. Like Dave Weckl had he had a DVD and it had that song. I can't remember the name of the song because I got the same track. That's where I got it from. But Spud was shedding to that during he was on tour with Snoop Dogg, and this was before my man Carlos McSwain took over Spud's spot.
studies of human
Carlos McSwain is from Atlanta.
first time.
Um,
The beginnings of
Matter of fact, he was in a Eddie Murphy movie. But I'm seeing these dudes come in, and I remember they had. I was like, what? Man, everybody there was like, it was wild, bro. It was wild. And even with this dude, I'll be honest, the drummer was the weak point. Cause everybody else was smoking. They were smoking. The drummer was the weak point. He was like the silly Willy. He might have been cool, I don't know, but he came off like a silly Willy. Like he ain't know, like he was in over his head. He was good, he was definitely good, but he was in over his head. He needed some years of just playing and playing and playing to get his consistency together. He was real, like he kind of had some things, but not really. You know what I mean? Once they got Spud in there, it was over. It was over. But bro, they were asking us for where to get gigs, man.
a disease was
They
recorded
ain't had nothing, bro.
for the first
They was asking us where to get gigs, bro. They was like, yo, where can we play? Where can we get? What? It was wild, bro.
private place,
And then years later,
the bedroom.
but I saw it, dude. I saw it. I saw it happen, man. I saw they had it, bro. I saw they had it, but they had one missing piece, the drummer. They had, and to be honest, I could do it now, but back then I couldn't have did it. I couldn't have did what Snarky demanded. I couldn't have did that music any justice. Now, no problem. Back then, nah. A lot of what you see now is recent. This is recent development. I had to go through a lot of things. I had to go through rehab, physical rehab, like, but it changed my playing for the better. But
Then it goes on here, it talks about
but yeah, man, the 5 spot, bro. The five, I never forget. That was the biggest. Man, I was like, that was one of the wildest things I had experienced down here in Atlanta. You know what I mean? That was wild, bro. Like when you saw it happen, like, you know, it was wild, bro. Even with Carlos McSwain, bro, I saw that happen. Like Snoop Dogg came to Atlanta And he had the sexual seduction, sexual seduction, yay. He had all that.
Progress to sex.
And my man, Red, he from Atlanta. So he was working with Red in Atlanta. And then the spot, it's not the Apache, it's another place. I can't remember it. It was in Roswell, Georgia. It's a nice spot, man. All the serious jazz dudes. If they coming in from town, they going in. Everybody, every drummer. Stanley Clark been there. Like I can't remember. It's a famous jazz guitarist, man. He used to run the Sunday Open Jam. You just walk up there, and if you good, somebody gonna snatch you up. Man, Tony Royster been through there. I think even Thomas Pridgen been through there. A lot of people. That's where Tony got his bass player. His bass player was a blonde haired kid, played a 5-string bass. He wore real baggy clothes. He was blonde with a buzz cut. He was from Argentina. Oh man, I can't remember his name. Alberto something. I can't remember his name. But dude was a he was disgustingly nasty on bass. Like this dude could just whip out Jocko solos, Flea. This dude was like insane. I mean, there's a reason why. Like he went there and just walked in. He's just a humble dude. Like I think he got so good at playing bass that he just ran through all the scenes in Argentina. He just came to America. And he's like, why not just go to Atlanta? Why not? And at the time, Atlanta's still kind of popping on the music stuff, but not like back then. Not like back then. It wasn't even close to back then. You know, back then it was riding high off of the whole, Dungeon Family situation with Goody Mob and Outkast, all them dudes, and it still had the So Def thing going, and it still had the TLC, the Face Records thing going, all that stuff was still up, but it was starting to die down. And the underground rap scene was start like all the Futures, because Future was in the Future Dungeon Family. A lot of people don't know that Future Dungeon Family. You know what I mean? But the Futures, they was like Dungeon Family. They pretty much bred the next generation of rap. You know what I mean? Like, because everybody followed Future. Everybody took the auto tune and all of that stuff and just ran with it. And they didn't do the auto tune the way T-Pain did it. They did it the way Future did it. Future leaned into the absurdities and the weirdities of, because his voice was kind of, if you listen to the guy I've heard him without the auto tune. Auto tune really doesn't add much to it. His voice he's just got an incredible voice, and even the way he writes songs, But it can be like easily repeated or imitated. It can be easily imitated with autotune. You can kind of mask it with autotune. So that's why, so that's I said Dungeon Family. It kept going, but that's when he came up here, and he went and just I saw him, and I sat in with him, and we went into it's off of Heavy Weather. It's a Jocko solo. And he was like tapping, like this dude. He was like, I was like, what? This dude is just. But I was like, okay, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'm definitely here for it. He actually reminds me. And then, well, Tony saw him one day, because Tony came in one day, and this boy was filming.
Ingenious.
You know, his boy used to always carry a camera. This is before Tony was playing with Jay-Z and all that. But he came in and he saw a dude on bass and was like, because dude became a regular. He just would come in because he was trying to get gigs. And Tony saw him, was like, come with me. And he left. And Tony went to California, got the Jay-Z gig, and then he was ready. He went to California. Ike and all them dudes and Tony's band, they was still here doing the local scene and playing in churches and stuff like that. Um, and then Tony got off tour. Tony did the DVD. No, Tony did the DVD. That's what it was. He did the DVD first.
Straight onto the skin.
And that was before my man came in. He not my man. That's my habit. That was before my man from Argentina jumped in that band. He did the DVD. That DVD spread all over. I got that DVD because I retired from playing drums and everything. You know, I was stuck on Married Life, which Married Life is, I'm still stuck on Married Life, but I was just like, I was newly married. I wasn't really trying to hear playing drums. It's a lot. It's an undertaking, you know. And I just wanted to really focus on being married, you know. And I still was skittish about going back into music. But it was, you know, one of the guys who helped me get back into music, he's a preacher out in Tennessee. He would take me out to open jam spots. And he's a preacher, he got a band. But but you know, he got a band. They play like jazz and you know what I mean, but he's not he's not an old dude, you know, he's a young dude. So he's young. You know. You could do that down here in Atlanta, you know. You could kinda, you know, you could still make money doing music. You can still like, you know, you can still get your hustle on. You know what I mean? It's matter of fact, it's easy. You still do it, you know. I think, and I know a lot of other places you can't. In Atlanta, you still can, you know. You still can, you know. But but
pins and needles, numbness in
but yeah, so
and it can affect
that's how he got with Tony.
you could start to lose
But
your sense of balance and not be able to tell
this is
exactly
what
where you are
happened.
in relation to the world. But then once it starts
The
to affect the
first
nervous system,
Tony
it can get to the brain
Royster
and cause
DVD
dementia, memory
was
loss,
done
convulsions,
on
and
DW's
dementia.
dime.
So while Tudor
They
showed
paid for
great
that.
invention, they were actually making the bedroom itself a
So
deadly chemical trap,
instead,
filling it
because
with
that's like a
poisonous
loan,
chemicals.
you know,
Great doses of it. So much
like
so
they
actually
don't
that
like you don't really get no money from that. That's not, you know, they film you, but they produced it. You know what I mean? They give you the drum sets, they endorsing you, they film the video. You know, it because it was really, I read that thing. I still got it over there. I got the DVD over there. I read
A
it.
couple of theories. One,
It's a DW video featuring Tony Royster.
and that was the first time it had been
But
introduced to
he
the
got to blow chops all over that thing. He got to set the music. He got to choose the band. They just paid for everything. So Tony didn't get anything from that, which is fair.
and destructive and caused this
You,
severe disease
I put the money behind it. Like, that's how business works. You want some money, you have to fund your own. That's just, it is what it is. But it's the exposure. That's, you know what I mean? So Tony didn't have a problem with that. You know what I mean? Because he knows that the exposure that's going to get, man, not only him, but his buddies. The dudes got, man, this. I remember when Tony was playing in like storage sheds, man. We all used to do that. We always do that, playing storage sheds. But that was big in Atlanta. You know what I mean? And the storage facilities in Atlanta, they cool with it. They don't run you off or nothing. They cool with it. You know, they understand how it is. Cause they probably gonna go out and see you playing at night. Like, you know what I mean? So it don't make no difference. But you know, then that DW DVD, that's what pushed him out there. And then he went on tour with Jay-Z. When he did that Jay-Z tour, That's when he got
and had started
he got
to
old
usher
boy
in
on bass. He got the same band, but he changed the bass player. He had Antonio on bass. He had the same band, but he had Antonio on bass.
Period of change. There
That
were
was the
ages,
best iteration of his
which took
band.
centuries to
You
expose,
know what I mean?
and some of which are with us still. Their roots
I
firmly
seen
located
clips
in
of
the Tudor
I
age.
seen clips of Ron Broner at this place. I can't remember the name of the place, man. 449 or something like that. 449. It's something like that. 449 or four. No, it's not 441. 499 or 449 or something like that. It's in Roswell. It's Metro Atlanta. It's
In
like
this age of invention, homes
down
were
the street from
constantly
Atlanta.
besieged
Like, you
with
know what I
new
mean?
gadgets, products, and conveniences.
Down the street from the city of
In
Atlanta.
the
It's
bedroom were
like
the latest beauty
right
products
outside of
and
Buckhead.
wonderful
It's like right. It's just and Buckhead
In
is
the
Atlanta.
nursery, the toys were brand
Like
new,
that's when you're.
factory produced. And
Roswell.
for the first
It's
time,
just
the
like it's hard to
storyboard of the
explain.
entire house,
It's Atlanta, but
the
it's not
original
Atlanta.
home
It's
sweet
wild.
home,
It's
it
hard to
was a
explain.
problem.
You know, like Dunwoody got tired of the blurry lines and said, "Look, we just gonna call ourselves the town of Dunwoody."
And with the
You
aid of
know,
science, our
so we're not
superheroes,
Atlanta. We're
domestic
Dunwoody. You
assassins.
Some of
know,
their houses were disgusting.
um,
I'll be revealing what
but
the Victorians couldn't see inside their
but yeah,
homes
man,
Those things
seeing him pop off,
kill
seeing
women.
Tony pop off,
and showing the terrible
then
injuries that
seeing
were
Carlos
inflicted
McSwain
in the
pop
name of
off.
progress.
What you need to
And
do is
I
move from
remember
bush to
Carlos because the thing is, Antonio
And now chasing the
before
Victorian
he
dream.
left with with Tony Royster, while Tony Royster was touring with Jay-Z, Antonio was doing gigs with Carlos McSwain. Now Carlos McSwain
In the
was
second half of the
nasty.
19th
He was
century,
like
cities
5'4",
exploded to house the booming middle classes. In just over
short
50
dude,
years, their number grew from 2.5 million
nasty on
to
drums,
over
bro.
9.
Nasty. He was nasty, and he was even a nastier producer.
Immense pride in their
So
home.
he had options. So it was like, when Snoop
And the
Dogg did
latest
sexual
trends
seduction and all of that stuff,
cozy havens of
he was kind of
domesticity
in
and
them. He
comfort.
was in them sessions
Not for
because he
those
was a
the
producer.
grim perils of
But everybody knew
Victorian
he was a
fashion,
drummer.
or the
And
gritty
Snoop Dogg was
reality
like,
of
"Oh,
crowded
this little
streets.
dude
The sort
produce
of family who
and he
loved
play
comfort,
drums and he nice on drums.
comfort
All
and
right."
luxury
And then he
previously
started touring with
unknown to
Snoop Dogg,
ordinary
Carlos
people.
McSwain. He had a
The cost
bike,
of necessity
and he wasn't
fell
no gang
dramatically,
member. But of
and with
course,
mass
he's
production
Snoop's
techniques and
drummer.
goods available
Snoop is a
from
famous
California,
Crip, so
This meant 11
he's
police
automatically
officers
associated with the
could never
Crips.
witness
So
more. They
he
filled
had
their
his
rooms with
his
things that made them
his
part of
drum
the
set was a
story.
tricked out bicycle. It was it was literally like the California Cruiser, street
the Great
cruiser, big
Exhibition of
chromed out street
1851,
cruisers.
which showcased
That
the
was his
latest
drum set.
and the best in
It was the
gadgets and
dopest
consumer
drum
goods.
set. It was a custom.
What
It
had
was
been
matter of
happening now
fact,
for the best part of 100
D
years
drum.
suddenly
He
crystallized
got a sponsorship from
in
D
this
drum,
extraordinary
and it's
exhibit
a
that
custom.
wasn't
I
so
still
much
got
that it was new
the brochure of him.
as it was just
I still
something
got all this
cool
stuff. I'm gonna start producing some stuff. I just don't feel like
as
doing
the
it now.
century went
It's
on and
like
consumerism began to
over here. I don't
increase.
know where y'all at.
One of the
It's 10 after
fascinating
4.
things is
So,
that the
but
phrase
I'm like
standard of living first
insomniac
appeared.
type dude.
For the first
But
time in
yeah,
history, we
cause
measured
in
how
about
good
2
your
hours I'm
life
about to
was
leave.
by how many
You know,
objects you
um,
possessed. When you think about it, that's actually very strange
but
idea.
yeah, man, Carlos, he died at I want to say he was in his 30s, man.
What
He died
was
of a
and
heart attack.
wasn't tasteful was discussed at
Died of a heart
length in the
attack.
many and various new
Um,
household guides and magazines.
and it was crazy because he had got the Eddie Murphy
John
gig.
Ruskin, the leading
He had
art
got a
critic, said
gig. He's in the
furiously, impressed on
movie
visitors and
Dolomite.
consumers the
He's in that
importance
movie
of
Dolomite.
making the right
When they're
choices.
showing scenes where Dolomite's in the club and there's a live band playing, their drummer, that's Carlos McSwain.
And to teach taste
Plus, he
is
did a
nothing
lot
but
of
a
he did a lot of
form of
production for just a lot of LA like acts. He did a lot of production for like he's bigger. He's like big in the Atlanta music scene, but he's bigger in the hip hop scene out in LA. And he's bigger as known as like he's more known as a producer out there. They know him as Snoop's drummer, but he's made his name as a
And one
producer
of
out
the
there.
most dangerous
But
pieces
out here, he was just the drummer, who made beats,
was the
you
drawing
know,
room.
which I can relate because I'm a drummer who makes beats. So, well, I make beats
The
and songs
Victorians
and
were
whatever,
rejecting
whatever.
the idea of the
Because I
80s.
don't,
Their
my
new
distinction is
classicism
I
of
play bass,
strange
drums, guitar,
delicacy and
piano,
memoirs.
and
That
you
was
know what I
the thing.
mean?
They
So
wanted clutter, they wanted
I have
colour, they wanted
I have
extravagance. They
songs,
really
not just
managed to
beats,
show that
songs with
colour
guitar
and
solos
clutter
and,
and objects, that was
what have you,
wealth, and that was importance, and that was riches.
Matter of fact, I played one of them joints a couple streams ago.
One
I
thing
played it
that
on here.
particularly
I played a
indicated
couple
both
streams
good
ago.
taste and status
I opened up
was
the file
wallpaper.
in Logic
The
and
richer the
just played it.
pattern and the darker, more
Yeah.
vivid the colour, the
It is a
better.
demo version, but yeah,
Why?
it's complete with this.
Because with
It's
this
just I gotta
introduction,
lay better
piece
drums on
lighting for
it,
the first time
and
on screen, it was an
I'll
indulgence in the
film
house for ordinary
my
people to
recording
have and
process
enjoy
on
intense
here.
colour
I'll
on
put
their
it on here.
walls.
I'll film it because I'm gonna do it live. Like I did that before
Something of
with
a
another
wallpaper
song.
craze.
I just opened up the file and recorded live.
Which told the Victorians how to do everything, outlined principles of
Show
good
my whole
taste,
process.
and told them
It's
which patterns
it's
would
really like I got like a plug and
They
play
were
process. It
influencing
doesn't
massive
move. It's just
markets.
stationary.
Wallpaper
Everything's
sales had
hooked
shot
up.
up from around 1
All I gotta
million
do is
pieces a
press
year
one
in
button. I
1834
turn on the
to
power,
32
turn on the
million by
computer,
1874.
and
Guess what?
everything's ready to
Guess
go.
what it calls its
I
theory
can
of colour.
record. I can
It describes
stream.
the
I got
rules of the artistic
everything.
appreciation in
You know,
dress, in furniture, and it
it's a
recognizes it.
simple setup,
It calls
but
it a colour of repose.
it's
Says
very
the eye
effective.
experiences a healthy and
And
peculiarly grateful
I'm
impression
working
from this
with
colour,
8
as opposed to
channels.
something like yellowish red,
You know,
which it says is the preference of impetuous,
I
robust
was
men
running
and savage
14
nations.
mics through 8 channels. Now I'm only
A
running 12.
particularly brilliant green, known as Scheele's green,
There's a trick
was
to that.
all the rage. Scheele was the Swedish scientist who first mixed the pigment to produce an intensely vivid colour that didn't
There's a
fade.
trick to that.
Its incredible popularity meant that it was used in everything from carpets, blancmange, candles, and children's toys. But most of all, it was used in industrial quantities in wallpaper.
Oh yeah, that's why their
There
walls
was
were
one
setting on fire.
strange coincidence. As wallpaper sales escalated, so did reports of
Taken very
unexplained
ill.
deaths and illnesses in the home.
Illnesses in the home.
But there was nothing mysterious about it. The magic ingredient that was giving the wallpaper
Wow.
its rich green hue was arsenic.
Oh snap!
These were samples of what would be considered as tasteful wallpapers to have in a
Wow.
Victorian home. This on the walls would have been noted with arsenic.
Really?
Actually, in the printing of the book, it's also used arsenical dyes.
Wow. Arsenic?
There's quite a lot of arsenic in that.
Wow.
But could you prove it?
It's very easy to do.
Arsenic was originally used for printing.
SRF. It tells us which contaminants, metallic contaminants are present in items. Basically, you can see straight off that this has got large amounts of copper in it. It's got large amounts of arsenic in it.
Yes.
The actual salts used in this pigment are copper arsenate.
Wow.
This book. Is it safe for you to touch?
Probably not. I'll wash my hands afterwards.
Wow.
Modern science can prove
That's
that
crazy.
Victorian wallpaper contained
Check it out,
arsenic.
man. The original use for arsenic was
Understood at
for
the
like
time.
dyes in
To confuse
printing
matters
books,
further, the
man.
symptoms of arsenic
And then they
poisoning
started
were
using
very
it
similar to
for
poisoning, which had been rampant in
wallpaper,
Britain
like the
and lived
dyes on
in
the wallpaper, like the whatever.
The immediate effects
Um
could be of pain,
and people
swelling,
were like
softness,
dropping dead. Man. Holy smokes.
and then it's
They were
described as
dropping dead for
agonizing
that's why it got
as
relegated
the
to a
whole,
poison.
digestive tract is affected by this.
It was originally used as dyes.
Terribly unpleasant.
Printing dyes.
Dye, which was said to be quite a relief because it's such an agonizing
Yo,
thing to dye.
people were dropping dead. What's up? Hi.
newspaper headlines continued
People
to
were
report
dropping dead.
mysterious
That's
illnesses and deaths, and
crazy.
links were made with arsenic. In the second half of the 19th century, the newspapers are full of cases like this one. 6-month-old child dies as a result of chewing on a piece of
Wow.
emerald green wallpaper.
Wow. babies were chewing on like the wallpaper. You know, they teeth. They would chew on the wallpaper
was endangering the
and
health
die
of the
within
nation
6 months,
in
man,
another,
from arsenic
much more
poisoning.
insidious way.
That's how it got
That
relegated
chemical
to a poison.
reaction
Okay,
poisonous
it makes
fumes were
sense
thought to
now.
have infiltrated the very air they were breathing.
Wow.
There's a lot of debate about the production of arsenic gases from the wallpaper.
Arsenic gases.
The wallpaper, particularly flock wallpapers, contaminated
Yo.
from your house would be covered in arsenical dust. But also,
You
in
think about like the
houses which are
Victorian era?
humid and
Ooh.
relatively damp, you put damp together with wallpaper paste and cellulose
That's
of
like
the wallpaper itself, and you get fungal
I
growth.
like
And
looking at
when
stuff like
that
this because
applies, those
it shows where you come
oxidants
from.
into a volatile form
And
of
plus for years I did a lot of construction,
toxic.
and you wonder like why there are so many construction because you got to learn that stuff. Like as deep as I got into construction, I got into basically general contracting.
In this
Um,
lovely fug of arsenic, thinking they were in this perfect
but
virtuous, healthy
just
room.
knowing in having the experience of individual, like I've done
It doesn't really
masonry,
matter how the arsenic is absorbed
I've
into
done
the
light
air, whether you breathe it
carpentry,
in, whether it comes in through the skin or the outer
electrical,
membranes, or whether you
HVAC.
actually
I
eat it.
mean,
It actually has a very
extensive
similar effect
HVAC.
because it's
Like
affected
from,
via the bloodstream. So the
I
arsenic
was the
gets into the
guy. I
bloodstream and
went
travels
from
around the body.
installing
But one of the
the
problems
ductwork.
with
I was a grunt.
the slower arsenic poisoning of a small amount over a
To
period
I
of
went
time
from that
is that
to
it causes
working in the
recurring
shop,
symptoms. And obviously, if you're being poisoned by
like
something
actually
in a
making the
particular room
ductwork.
of the house and you're left
I would
that
take the
room
blueprints and
because of
just
it better,
read the
it will come
blueprints,
and
take the
go.
sheet metal, put it
And
on the
so
brake
people feel like
machine,
after they
spot
finish,
welding
they
machine,
feel
everything.
illnesses
Like
going around all the time.
all that stuff.
Some
And
doctors
then
began to
eventually I was
question
just
the use
running a
of
crew,
arsenic in wallpaper
you
as
know?
more
And
and more
then
mystery
it
deaths
was
were
like
reported in the
I
home.
was like running the shop
Concert too took up the
because
cause.
I had been on the crew in installation,
There appears good reason
and
to
I went
believe
from
that the
grunt
very
work to
large
doing
rise of
line
sickness
sets,
and
which is
mortality among
you
working
walk into
classes is attributable to this
you
cause,
walk into a what's the
and
name of
we
that?
may probably account for
Like
their
if you got a
increased
contract, you're
diseases
doing
of
a
present
subdivision.
day, which take
You
place
literally walk
according
in
to
there.
no
You
made
don't
schedule.
you tell people where you want the condenser unit, and you
In
just wire the condenser
1896, a
unit
couple in
to
Birmingham
the inside
reported to the
furnace.
Dr. Hines,
That's it.
that they were suffering
But
from three eyes,
you gotta
headache,
what do you
and
call it?
sore throats.
A subdivision that you
All
gotta do in a certain
apparently
amount
due to
that you got. You know what I mean? Like and it was the goals were always easy. I would always push myself to see if I could do more.
They suspected
And
something
my
might
thing is
arise,
do
and
it
they had recently
right.
applied bright
It's not enough to
green
do it
to
fast.
two
Do it
roofs.
right or don't do it.
Dr. Hines thought
So
health alone could be
just with that conviction
responsible for
alone,
the
man, I got
cause.
far, bro. And then they were like, "Yo, man, we're gonna take you off the line." I was like, "What?" I don't know. I thought they were just joking with me. You were saying something, crazy. I don't know. And they said, "Nah, man, we want you to run. We want you to run the crew. You know, because you've done everything else." So I said, "All right." So I
what's
started running
really
the crew.
astounding is how
You
much
know.
arsenic there was
So
in
then
water
after
in
a
Birmingham.
while, my man
More than
Chad was
1/5
retiring.
contained arsenic pigment.
Um,
Certainly,
he
we
was the
know that a
boss.
huge amount
But
of
we had been with them when it was only like
say
me, my
growing
boy
in a
Tony,
room which had 100 square meters
him, and
size
Barry.
could contain
You
about
know,
2.5 kilograms of
and
arsenic, and that's a lot of arsenic.
him and Barry owned the company. They ran the company. It was their company. But we were the first two dudes,
Dr.
their first
Hines,
two
along with some
employees.
other medical
And it's
practitioners,
another dude named
became
John. John
outspoken
eventually dropped
critic
off.
of the use
But
of
then they started
arsenic
hiring other
pigment.
people, you
In
know.
Germany, arsenical
Um,
wallpapers had been
and
banned.
then eventually I was running
Not in the
outside crew.
UK.
Tony had left. He went back to
Manufacturers
school.
didn't want
He ended up
to
working for
people to
Microsoft.
think there's anything
But
wrong with their products.
I
Say
stayed
advanced lighting
there
companies like Vision
and
fought a long campaign to get
I
arsenic
kept working,
free.
working,
So
working, working.
there
And
was quite a
then
lot of dispute that was going on.
because I had known the shop
Some doctors and
and
newspapers
because
fought for the British government
before I
to
ran the
ban the
crew,
poisonous paper.
I went from outside to
But others were
inside
quick to
and
believe
then
the
I
claims
learned
of
the
the yellow
shop and I was
wallpaper.
just running the
Some
shop.
manufacturers even
So
wanted to
then
eat it to prove how
they
safe
needed
it
somebody
was.
to run the crew because the crew was getting bigger. So like they
One of
needed more
Britain's
people because
most
more
celebrated
contracts, more money,
wallpaper
whatever.
designers was
So
William
then they
Morgan,
said, okay,
a
well you
leading
have
advocate of
experience in
arsenic
installation and
removal.
everything. We just gonna
He
have
was also
you.
one of the
We're gonna
fiercest
get dues for
critics
line
of
sets.
this
We're gonna dues for
industrial
installation,
period.
and you run that crew.
What is
I
more
said, all
well
right.
known
And
about this
then
chap
what
named
happens is
Handycraft is that he was a
they wanted to
director
start
of
another
the
crew
biggest
because the
arsenic
crew
producing
that we
plant in
had
the
was getting
world.
bigger. So they started another
Given
crew,
great
and they
confidence,
hired another dude. The other dude, they had him switch over to the new crew. the one dude, I had to train him. He came from that crew. I had to train him to run the crew. So I trained him to run it. He ain't really work out. So we ended up getting rid of him. But replaced him with another dude, and then the other dude, my man Mike, he came in. I trained him. Mike took it like that. So then they were like, okay, we want you to run the inside. So I ran the inside, and Danny was running the cruise, and Danny was messing up. So they was like, well, Mark, why don't you run the inside and the outside? And that's how I started running the inside and the outside. Now on the reality tip, I'm thinking, man, now at the time I was making like $42,000 a year. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. I was just single, just doing my thing. I was a musician. I was just single. And really, to be honest, at the time, I was on parole. I was on parole. I was fresh on parole. I was like on parole. Matter of fact, all that stuff that happened got me off of parole early. But what happened is I was I was working there, and they kind of was flim flamming me. I was making money, and I didn't care. I didn't mind it. I knew it, because it's like you got one person doing two jobs. But that's not the first time I did that. The last company I worked for, I was like, you know, I was one person doing two jobs, really doing three. You know what I mean? But I relegated to two and a half. You know what I mean? So, but I'm like, yeah, whatever. As long as you pay me. The last company ain't gonna pay me. This company, the bat that I'm talking about, the HVAC company, they paid me, man. They paid me good, especially like I was single, no kids, just doing me. I wasted a lot of money because I could. Um, but you know, I just I got experience with that. And then I went into music, and then I jumped out of music. When I jumped out of music, I went into maintenance. Uh, because you could be a musician, but if you're on parole, they're not trying to hear that. They want to see that you need to pay. Because you got to pay restitution, and you got to pay for that. When you're on parole, you're not. It's not free. You got to pay for parole. You got to pay for that. So that's why they're like, you got to get a job, you got to do this because you got to pay for parole. You paying them, you paying the state government, you paying law enforcement, you paying the DO not the DO the DOC, Department of Corrections. That's what you paying. While you on parole. So for me, it was a combination. The reason why I got off parole early was a combination of things. Number one, I basically paid my way off parole. You know what I mean? If you pay your fines, you pay because you get a set amount of money that you got to pay. You pay all that, they're gonna let you off early. But if you got a really good job and you pay all that, they're gonna let you off early. You know, so
Years of exposure to this would have led to cancers, basically.
wow. That's true.
Victorian ideal, or perhaps fantasy of domesticity, was that the lady of the house should be, as Charles Dickens describes it in The Mystery of Edwin Drood, the ministering angel of domestic bliss. Victorian women were encouraged to make their home
Was
a
good.
reassuring sanctuary for their husbands.
But yeah, man, I got a lot of I gained a lot of experience, and the thing is, working in all those different fields. When I did maintenance, and it was crazy, man. I worked in like carpentry, plumbing, HVAC, HVAC certified, electrical. You know, um, I even did data installation where I was installing fiber optic cables. Um, but when I became a maintenance, for a while, I was for years I was doing maintenance. I got into construction because I knew that one day I was going to have a home studio, and I want it built to my specifications. And if I pay you to build my studio, I want to make sure it's up to code. I want to make sure I'm not being skimped on. So I learned all those fields so I could be like, I paid you for this. That's not what do that, fix that. You know what I mean? But um even with that, I mean, just being in all those fields, then I transitioned to maintenance.
The
You
pursuit
know,
of this
that
feminine
was my day
ideal
job,
wasn't
maintenance.
entirely safe,
At the time,
working in many ways via
when I
force
really
or
jumped back
harmful
into music,
toxins.
I was married. I had a maintenance job, which required me to be on call, and then I had a
Fashioning the
baby,
ideal
my
Victorian
baby
woman
girl,
was
our
looking just
oldest.
right. Whatever your physique,
I was
one of
doing both,
these came in handy.
and I
In
did
fact,
that up
this was
until
essential.
Corsets kept everything
my
under
youngest
control
son was
and they meant
born.
self-reserve, and that was vital to the Victorian
Um,
woman because the opposite was just excess
really,
and freedom and flesh flying everywhere.
ever
And next to
since,
that, well, the world went
ever
round.
since, you know what I mean? Like,
That's quite tight already.
even with this last company, married, 4 kids, pursuing music, and playing in church. You know what I mean? So
Sarah
it's always been
looks
that.
after
You
one
know
of
what
the
I mean?
biggest
And
corset collections in the
you
country.
know,
So, Sarah, tell me about all the different layers we can
so
see.
for me,
First of all,
I
you've
look at
got
things. It's
beige layers
hard
of
for me
lace,
to
so
look
you
at other
very clearly want
musicians
it next to your skin.
The
and
corset predates the bra,
and
but its function was
expect
to support the chest
instant
and carry
success
the weight of up to 14
when
pounds of
I
clothing.
had to work for everything I got.
With this, you would have
I
had
had to
better
work for it.
control. That's sort of
Like,
five
that's just
layers.
real.
Yeah. You use
I
your body
prayed to
weight. There
God
it is, yes.
that I would get better. And you know what he said?
Factory
I ain't gonna
manufactured the
sprinkle no
corset
dust
with
on you,
full
but I'm gonna put you in safe
It's
situations
all
to
very
get better. And
artwork
I'm gonna put you in certain
before the
situations where you
stuff.
got enough
It's
time
just beautiful.
to work on
It
your
may have
gift.
looked beautiful,
And that's
but
what he
women were
did. I
unwittingly
worked on my
paying a
gift.
terrible
You know
price.
what I mean? I worked on my passion. I love music. I worked on it. You know what I mean? And I got there. So I know it seems like, wow, like people kind of look at me and they're like,
In the
wow, like
1860s and
it's like
70s,
I'm doing
corsetry
something. No, I
became
just I
increasingly
literally worked
extreme.
at it. That's what it is. I worked at it. I kept doing
By the
it.
mid 19th
You know what I
century, the
mean?
ideal
And
female
to
form
have
of
that kind of
classical
focus
female form
requires
was everywhere in
emotional
newspapers,
maturity.
magazines,
When you
journals,
don't
things
feel like
magazine,
it,
and this
when you
celebrity
feel like a
society,
failure,
the
when
dance
you feel
clubs,
like when you
particularly the
walk into
fashion
some
plates,
spot
it's
and there's a
impossible for
dude
male
who's
floor
smoking
showers and
on
women
your
wearing like
respective
that.
instrument and you walk out of there feeling
Using
like I got to
corsets
start from
can come with
scratch. I
stress, as it were,
suck. I've
depending
had
on
all
your
those feelings.
age, your
I've had
class,
those
your
I'm playing
occupation,
this just for me.
and her family
I've
needs.
resigned the fact that whether I'm
It
famous or
was then
not, I'm
named
just
that the
going to be the
corset was to
dopest
be
drummer
worn
I
at
can
all
be. I've
times
resigned
and
myself
was
to
no
that fact.
escape,
I don't care.
not even in the
You know what I mean?
corridors.
All of this right here
So
is just to
these are
share what I
layers
got.
to
You know what I mean? That's,
the
you know what I
outside of
mean?
the
If I
outerwear
can help
range.
somebody
So
else
I
become
would
a
go
better
with a
drummer,
mount or to
you
get
know what I
a
mean,
mount.
and extend the
Fancy
craft,
corset.
then why
One of
not?
the reasons it
I'm
has
not looking for
centre
money.
tension
If you
removed.
want to pay
Many
me,
women
that's
prefer
cool.
this.
If you don't want to pay me,
Yes.
keep watching.
Yes, and
I'm
you
not
wear
gonna
it
shoo you
as
away.
woman.
Keep watching.
If you didn't
Maybe you're
wear
gonna
your
pick something
corset,
up.
It
Maybe you
turns
gonna,
out
you
to
know
be
what I
quite
mean? Maybe you'll, because that's the whole
demonstrative,
point. If
fine,
you pick
and
something up, if you
characterizes
see
as a
something I
design
do,
fit for the British
you know what I
Empire.
mean? Like, I'm not big on
These
requests.
robust
I'm
cages
not,
of
because I'm not trying to
gold-bearing
learn your
steel
whole.
were turned
I'm
into
not trying to
cage
learn
frames
your
and a
personal
surprisingly small
catalog of favorite
technological
songs. I'm not
advance:
trying to do that.
the metal
I'm not
ring.
trying to do that. I'm not even trying. I got a personal catalog of songs, and I don't even want to learn them.
Their corset
I
with
just like them.
fabric pulling
I
away.
don't want to learn them. You know what I mean? So, but if
The
somebody
women
says,
pilot
"How
never
do you play
needed
a
to be
such and such and
promoted
such and
because
such?"
it was possible to
Okay.
lace
Or if
tightly
I
over the
play
beats without
something and they
tearing
say,
the
"Yo, roll
music
that back,
completely
do that
apart.
again," what'd you do? Like
There
you just
was
did something with a
something
crossover.
very,
Oh,
very
okay, and I'll
characteristic
slow it
about
down and
this
be like,
time.
"Yo,
It's
man,"
fascinating.
you know what I
You
mean?
see
Or I'll be
in
like, "Yo,
photographs
you know what I mean?
the
I know you
fabric
broke,
pulls
and
in a
there's
way that
ways
we
to
would
get
find
around
it doesn't fit.
being
The
broke
tight
and still
lacing
wanting to
is
play
something
music
that
and keeping it cheap,
a
but
minority of
keeping the
people do, and it
sound
is to get your
at a
waist
high
as
level.
small as you possibly
There's
can.
ways around it.
They used to
You
do
know, I
that
got four
by
kids. I got a wife and four
lacing
kids, man.
the corset tighter and tighter.
You know, and I'm gonna be honest. Like you look at a lot of channels, they say,
Thousands on both
"Well,
and
I have a
rear
lot of
to
gear,
train their
but this is
bodies.
from years of accumulating gear." This ain't from okay. Well, when they say years, it's probably like
Slightly
they
affects
say
the
15 to
corset on
20
the body
years,
in that
whatever. Yeah, about
the
15 years. The
shoes
average is like
mirror
15,
the
maybe 20 years.
position of the normal organs. So the
The
liver,
stuff
for
I got
example,
ain't
our
but 4 years
largest
old.
organ, sits underneath the
The
ribs
mic
on the
setup
right.
ain't
So
even a
it's a
year old.
large
You
wedge-shaped
want to keep it
organ
gully?
that sits
Ain't
here
even a year
above
old.
the ribs.
Like
And so
that
the
drum, them drums.
corset brings the ribs
I had
very,
them.
very
I had them
tightly
less
to
than 6
prevent
months.
the
You know
typical
what I
small
mean?
waist
But
line
the liver gets
I
squashed
know how to get stuff for the low.
and it presses against the
And it's
grease.
legal
In
and it's,
fact,
you know,
there are
You just got to know how to look for deals. You know what I mean? And really experimenting with stuff. Because even now, man, I'll just be honest. I'll reveal some things. There are a lot of like mic modeling, or there are a lot of mics that are I'll say this: the knockoffs are sounding incredibly like the real ones. The knockoffs are sounding incredibly like the real ones. You'd be surprised. Them knockoffs be sounding good.
Corsets when pregnant.
You know,
Particular choice came from women about the
um,
corsets, but when they fell pregnant,
they're
many
just
husbands
they're
complained they
you
didn't
know
want
like the
their baby
casing and
stretched
all of that
or feel
stuff.
longer,
It's like
but there were women who continued to wear
what's not the
corsets through
casing?
pregnancy, which
The
is no
construction of the
way
outer
to prove
stuff.
that that is
It's
possibly
just
good for
plastic. But they use the same diodes, they use the same resistors, they use the same transformers. If they don't, what they do is they'll take a microphone and reverse engineer it and make the same thing with local parts. There's a place in China, like you literally can just give them an object and they'll just make one for you right there and give you back your object and give you, yeah. I can't remember the name. I can't remember the name of the province. hmm
I confess I
I've
felt
been there too.
delighted to have a smaller waist.
You can literally. Matter of fact, I've been to China. I went to Hong Kong before
Victorian
before
household
it was
diets
given back to
didn't
China.
focus on suitable
They gave it back to
exercise.
China in the '90s, in like '97. I went to Hong Kong before that, when China was like slumpity slump. Them jokers was broke. Matter of fact, nobody even knew. They barely had, man. Them jokers barely had. There's the bicycle culture. Nobody had cars. Everybody had bicycles. You know what I mean? There was no infrastructure like what they got now. It was just nothing. Hong Kong was the spot, and I went there, got a bunch of Calvin Klein jeans, got a Louis Vuitton jacket, some Louis Vuitton luggage. There's a spot where you literally, because I went back. I've been back since. There's a spot where
Now Matt monitors my
you
vital
could
signs
literally
with
give them an object and they'll just reverse engineer. You give them a microphone. Like, say if you spent if you spent $800 on a used Neumann TLM
same
103
exercise with Matt measuring
and
my
you
heart
flew to
rate
China,
and airflow.
you could give it to them. They will take it apart, examine how it's made. They'll make the board. And the reason why I know I know what they're doing because I used to
And
do it.
Matt's
I used
already
to
seeing
build circuit
changes.
boards for like um what's the name of this? For like PA systems and stuff like that. There's a company called Wheelock out of Long Branch, New Jersey. I used to work there. I worked the night shift. And I got promoted because I just learned everything so fast. Like I learned the wave solder machine. There's another machine that's
Not
basically
close to
it's a
fainting. It takes
silicon
2
board,
minutes for my head to clear,
and
and I'm not even
they
tired.
basically silk screen um solder. They silk screen it. They screen print it on the board, and the board has little holes. And in those holes, if you ever look at a circuit board, it has certain numbers. Those
The
numbers
science reveals
are
all the
the
effects of a
what
corset.
transistors, what resistors, what transformers, all that stuff. And if you look on them, they have a certain code. Well, those codes mean something. Um, but those codes correspond. Well, like you gotta have a board full of diodes and transistors and resistors and transformers and like all of that stuff. You just got it's like a supply bin, and you're literally like bink, 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 and then and then there's another station that you go over. It's called a wave solder machine. Now, what you do with all those boards with the diodes stuck in, and they got the little holes, whatever. Those get stuck on a rack, a rolling rack, and everybody in there, you're in a clean room. Like you have a mask on, you got goggles on, you got the full hazmat, whatever. It's it's not hazmat, but it's like a plastic suit. Like, well, ours was like blue plastic. Well, we had the plastic suit and the jacket, and you had to wear either the rubber finger condoms or I wore straight rubber gloves because I ain't putting no condoms on my finger. Um, Pause. But I had the rubber gloves, and I just bink, 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 and I got good at that. I was like, because I memorized, I got a good memory, so I was just like, okay, that's on that one. So eventually, I was just going, you know what I mean, and it was fast. And then they said, okay, we're gonna put you on another thing, and it's another station where it's almost like some lights for like alarm systems, those long lights are actually vacuum sealed. So I had to work on a vacuum machine. And it's basically a machine that it sucks all the air, any air out of the product, and it heat seals everything. It's a flash heat seal. And it almost looks like it's being shrink wrap. But like it's kind of weird. But I worked on that one. I was like, okay, well, blah 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 blah. So then they was like the dude from the wave solder machine. I think he left. Yeah, he left. He went somewhere else. I can't remember. Oh no, the dude that was working a wave solder machine. They were forming another shift. Because the company was just like high demand. So he went to that shift. He went to run that shift. They switched me to wave solder machine. You know. So I know all aspects of how to build electronics. Like I know the whole. I've actually done it for a living. It's made some good money too. Oh yeah, I worked in the clean room. But if I took a Neumann TLM 103, go over there, they put on a mask, put on some rubber gloves. They had that big old magnifying glass. I still got mine over here somewhere. They were up there on that shelf. Matter of fact, let me go get them. Right there. Tell me, I got a million stories. I could verify them. My joints is right here. Dang. That was a good job. But yeah, they'll take that. A lot of people use the big. Basically, it's a vanity light turned backwards. It's a round circular light with a big magnifying glass. Nah, I like that one because you could flip up and down. But that's matter of fact, those are the ones from that company I used to work for, Wheelock. But they'll dismantle it. You come back and like, cause they got companies that actually make the bodies of TLM 103s. They got companies in China that like actually they make the bodies. They like that's one of the things they do. They just make bodies of famous microphones. You know, because I mean, even in America, you could buy a DIY TLM 103 or DIY Neumann U87. Like you could so they sell them to the DIY market. You go there, you can get a perfect replica, perfect audio replica. You want to see one?
New world where the ingenious Victorian inventor felt he had the answers to any domestic problem. But many of these inventions were difficult to use.
Let me find a fresh one. Let me pull it out the bag. You can get perfect replicas. Joints sound just like TLMs. Telling you. Sound just like them. $30 a piece. First couple ones I got them for like 10. Sound just like them. Those are the Tom mics I use. You know. And my overheads. I wanted something with the 414 sound. So got something for that.
Now, that coal gas
I got a model for 14.
and the material called a water gas.
You know,
Now these were highly polished places.
so there's ways around stuff. You know,
The worst killer was because you couldn't actually smell it, so you'd have no idea until it was too late, basically.
but yeah. So
Just keel over, and that would be the
yeah,
end of it.
my 414s. I like them. The ones I have, I like because they're honest.
The papers, everything from rustic
AKG C414s, they kind of have a scooped sound.
horribly. These aren't cases.
It doesn't. It's not.
Snippets that give the facts and figures. So, for example,
It sounds scooped.
in the
You know,
Manchester Evening
that's the only way I
News
can.
1886,
That's the only way I can. What do you call it?
5 boys
Wow.
suffocating in a loft.
Carbonic
There's this
acid
one
gas.
from the
Wow.
Sheffield Independent, 1872. The lady was found confined
Wow.
in a bedroom
Well,
with
yeah.
gas, and it says she must have unconsciously
C414s.
the gas stove, thus committing an
They
escape
alter.
from
I have bifalies. They're C414. Like they're model, but they're more honest.
It may seem obvious to us now,
Um.
but at the time the dangers that were
Um.
not known to
The
the
mids
speed,
in like
and the gas
in
stoves
music.
and
Period.
others didn't help
Just in
us.
music. The magic is in the mid range. You know what I mean? C414s. When I say they sound scooped, scooped is lows bumped up, highs bumped up, mids scooped down. It's like the mids have been scooped out.
Gas companies were
Um,
dropping a
and if the magic is in the mid range, why would I buy a mic that sounds scooped? So, but I heard about the bifaily C414s, which a guy called the Mic Assassin. He's a voiceover. Like you, if you heard his voice, you like, oh, I heard him before. Like even the guy who introduces his videos, like you've heard his voice before. Like he's a legendary voiceover dude. But he was the one, like he was like, man, I paid $70 for these. And then he was like, close your eyes. He's got a video where he's like, close your eyes. And he clicks between the AKG C414 and the Bifaily C414. And I heard the difference. I was like, at first I was like, when I heard it, because just hearing a C414, the Bifaily version sounded kind of almost flat, and I was like, hmm. But he measured it, and he showed it on like he had a plugin where he could measure like the frequency range, and it was scooped, and he said it. He said he's like the AKG sounds scooped. And he said the Bifaily sounds honest, and it does. It sounds like an honest representation of the audio source. Like it sounds like my ears hear my cymbals. When I record with a Bifaily, it sounds like that coming through the speakers. Like I hear like the little like the metal, like you can hear the crispness without it being like really harsh, you know. Um they're really good mics. So, but if you have a cheap cymbal or if something's tuned really bad, it's not gonna hide it. It's gonna be honest. You know what I mean? But that's kind of what you want. That's what I want. I don't want a mic. The thing about Neumanns, I love Neumanns, but in a way they color the mid range, to make it sound pleasing. They color it, you know. Um, but yeah, they, like I love Neumanns. Don't get me wrong, I love them, you know. But again, they color the sound, you know. I don't want you telling me how my stuff should sound. That's essentially what it is, and that coloring becomes, like this audio standard, So.